All right, we need to talk. Because what's happening right now in the atmosphere isn't just impressive, it's ominous. All across the central and eastern United States, the next 72 hours are shaping up to deliver one of the most intense, widespread, and dangerous winter weather events we've seen in recent history. Let me be clear. This isn't just another snowstorm. This is a full-scale atmospheric war. And it's being fought between two colossal forces, a brutal Arctic air mass charging south, and a deep surge of moisture roaring up from the Gulf of Mexico. Where these two collide, that's where chaos begins. From Texas to New England, from the deep south to the Great Lakes, this storm is about to make its mark. And what makes it truly dangerous isn't just how strong it is, it's how slow it's going to move. This isn't a quick hit-and-run system. This is a long-duration event, dragging its icy claws across the country over the span of 3 full days. And with that kind of slow evolution, we're looking at higher snow totals, prolonged freezing rain, dangerous wind chills, widespread power outage potential, and travel shutdowns that could paralyze major regions. In other words, this thing checks every box. So here's what I'm going to do for you right now. I'm going to walk you through the full 72-hour timeline, region by region, so you know what's coming, when to expect it, and just how bad it's going to get. But before we dive into the details, let's look at the big picture. The whole situation begins with an Arctic high-pressure system plunging out of Canada. This isn't unusual in January. We get cold air outbreaks all the time. But this one, it's got teeth. It's dense, it's dry, and it's moving fast. Temperatures behind this front are already tanking across parts of the northern plains. We're talking about actual temps dipping below zero, and wind chills easily between -30 and -60 degrees Fahrenheit, especially in North Dakota, northern Minnesota, and parts of Montana. This air mass is brutally efficient at wiping out warmth, and as it surges southward, it sets the stage for a major winter event. Because to the south, what's waiting? Moisture. A deep tropical tap of Gulf air is pushing northward, unusually warm for this time of year and packed with water vapor. That warmth and moisture is slamming straight into the Arctic wall, creating a violent boundary of contrast. And at that boundary, snow, ice, wind, cold. This setup is textbook for a classic U.S. winter storm. But what makes it extreme is just how long that boundary stalls over the heart of the country. Let's break it down, hour by hour, day by day. Hour by? The first signs of trouble start early Wednesday morning. Light snow begins developing across parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, and central Kansas. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. Maybe an inch or two, low visibility, some slick roads. But this isn't the main event. This is just the front edge of the storm, starting to wake up. By mid-morning, that light snow intensifies and spreads eastward. Cities like Des Moines, Omaha, and Kansas City start seeing steady accumulations, and temperatures begin to fall fast behind the front. Meanwhile, in the south, in areas like eastern Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, and the Texas Panhandle, precipitation begins to fall as a nasty, wintry mix. And this is where things start to go from inconvenient to dangerous. Because with surface temps dropping below freezing and warm air surging aloft, we're entering prime conditions for freezing rain, the most damaging form of winter precipitation. By Wednesday afternoon, the snow becomes heavier and more widespread across eastern Missouri, central Illinois, and western Kentucky. Cities like St. Louis and Springfield could be looking at snowfall rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour, the kind of snow that buries roads faster than plows can clear them. At the same time, a ribbon of freezing rain stretches across the Mid-South, threatening a wide zone from Little Rock through Memphis and into western Tennessee. Ice accumulation in this corridor could exceed a quarter to half an inch, enough to bring down trees, power lines, and shut down entire highway systems. And this is only day one. By Wednesday night, snow continues to pile up across the Midwest while the Arctic air digs deeper into the south, setting the stage for what comes next. Day 2 begins with the storm rapidly intensifying and expanding eastward. And this is when things go from serious to outright dangerous for tens of millions of Americans. By Thursday morning, the storm's central energy deepens and pushes a massive wall of snow across the Ohio Valley. Cities like Indianapolis, Columbus, and Cincinnati are waking up to whiteout conditions. Snow is falling fast and visibility is crashing. Driving becomes nearly impossible. This isn't fluffy snow you can brush off your windshield. It's heavy, wet, wind-driven snow that clings to everything and turns roads into skating rinks. As the morning hours unfold, the snowfall pushes into Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and western New York. Pittsburgh gets slammed. Buffalo braces for another round of lake effect enhancement, making a bad situation even worse. But it's not just the snow. Further south, and across the Appalachian foothills and into the southeast, ice is becoming the main event. Areas of central and western North Carolina, northern Georgia, and upstate South Carolina are entering the worst possible winter scenario: multiple hours of freezing rain. We're talking about a thick coating of ice that forms on tree branches, power lines, cars, roads, and it doesn't take much. A quarter inch of ice is dangerous, a half inch is catastrophic, and that's exactly what's on the table for cities like Asheville, Greenville, and even the suburbs of Atlanta. Meanwhile, the Arctic air behind the storm is crashing through the plains and Midwest, bringing record-shattering wind chills that can freeze exposed skin in minutes. In Minneapolis, Fargo, and Duluth, wind chills of -40 to -60 continue. That's life-threatening cold. And remember, cold this extreme doesn't just affect people. It affects infrastructure. Pipes begin to burst. Gas lines struggle to keep homes warm. Vehicles won't start. Battery life on phones and electronics tanks in minutes when exposed. And if the power goes out in these temperatures, it becomes a survival emergency. By Thursday afternoon and evening, the storm turns its focus toward the East Coast. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, snow begins to fall, mixing at first with sleet and freezing rain, then changing over to heavy snow as the cold air wins out. This is where timing becomes critical. If the cold air arrives just a few hours earlier, cities like New York and Boston could see major snow totals. If it lags, a slushy, icy mess with rapid refreeze behind it. But one thing is certain: travel along the I-95 corridor will become treacherous Thursday night into Friday. Flights will be grounded, trains delayed, highways gridlocked or completely shut down. And let's not forget the wind. As the low deepens off the East Coast, winds will ramp up, gusting 40, 50, even 60 miles per hour in coastal regions. Combine that with heavy snow and we're talking blizzard conditions, especially across Long Island, southern Connecticut, Rhode Island, and coastal Massachusetts. That means zero visibility. That means snow drifts several feet deep. That means emergency services could be delayed or unable to respond at all. And while the snow buries the Northeast, the cold continues its assault on the interior U.S. In states like Iowa, Wisconsin, and Michigan, the snow may be over, but the deep freeze is just beginning. Temperatures drop into the single digits, then below zero, and with no cloud cover at night, the radiational cooling intensifies. Even areas in the south like northern Alabama and Mississippi could see overnight lows in the teens, something most homes and pipes there are not built to withstand. This is the type of cold that breaks things, cold, and the system still isn't done. By the end of day 2, the storm's reach spans more than 1,500 miles from end to end. Nearly a third of the country is under some form of winter weather alert, watches, warnings, or advisories. Power outages are already being reported across multiple states. Shelters are opening, emergency declarations are being issued, grocery shelves are empty, and salt trucks and plows are being pushed to their limits. This is what a continental-scale winter storm looks like. But it's not over yet. Day 3 will bring the storm's final assault, and possibly its worst. Day 3. The storm's final act. But don't think that means it's fading. If anything, the damage ramps up, especially along the East Coast and in parts of the Deep South where infrastructure simply isn't built to handle what's coming. Let's start in the Northeast. By early Friday morning, a full-scale snowstorm is raging from New Jersey to Maine. New York City, Hartford, Providence, Boston, all under siege. Winds are howling, snow is blowing sideways. Visibility is near zero. Inland towns across Massachusetts and upstate New York may see snow totals climbing past 18, even 24 inches by midday. This isn't a typical nor'easter. It's longer, colder, and more sustained. And along the coast, another threat emerges. Coastal flooding. Strong onshore winds combined with high tides mean places like Cape Cod, Long Island's South Shore, and coastal Connecticut could see floodwaters rising fast. Roads submerged, basements flooded, emergency crews stretched thin. Back inland, the storm's snow shield continues hammering Vermont, New Hampshire, and parts of Maine. By Friday afternoon, totals in some areas could exceed 30 inches. Snow measured not in inches anymore, but in feet. At the same time, winds gusting to 50 or 60 miles per hour will create monstrous snowdrifts, piling up against homes, cars, and businesses. In some places, even stepping outside becomes dangerous, if not impossible. But here's the wild part. Even as this storm punishes the Northeast, it's still dragging its cold tail across the South and Midwest. Cities like Nashville, Birmingham, and even parts of northern Louisiana wake up to frozen roads, black ice, and neighborhoods that look like ghost towns. People are staying indoors because stepping out could mean a car wreck, a fall, or a trip to an ER that's already overwhelmed. Further north, the temperatures don't just remain low, they drop even more. Across the Central Plains and Midwest, the snow may have stopped, but now comes the deep freeze aftermath. Chicago, Minneapolis, Detroit, Green Bay. Temperatures well below zero. Wind chills beyond brutal. We're talking frostbite in under 5 minutes. And with snow-packed roads and frozen neighborhoods, crews can't keep up. Salt isn't working fast enough. And in some areas, emergency services are asking people not to call unless it's life or death, because response times are measured in hours, not minutes. And the power grid? It's buckling. By Friday evening, hundreds of thousands of homes across the Midwest, Appalachians, and Northeast are expected to be without power. Not because of wind alone, but because of ice buildup and overburdened lines that simply can't handle the load. In the Carolinas, freezing rain continues to glaze trees and wires. Transformers explode in bursts of blue light across the skyline. Linemen work around the clock, but the roads are slick. The conditions are hazardous, and some areas are completely unreachable. And while all this unfolds, another nightmare looms. Refreeze. As night falls Friday and skies clear behind the storm, any melted precipitation turns into a black ice minefield. Sidewalks, driveways, ramps, bridges, they all become treacherous again. Even places that saw a midday thaw are frozen solid by sundown. And now comes the human toll. Families huddling under blankets. Elderly residents trapped without heat. Parents lighting candles in fireplaces to keep children warm. Hospitals report surges in hypothermia cases. Emergency shelters begin reaching capacity. And across social media, the tone shifts from what's coming to how do we get through this? And it's not just emotional. It's financial. It's physical. It's psychological. Because by the end of day 3, what we're left with is a storm that has dumped more than 2 feet of snow in multiple states, left a half-inch or more of ice coating cities in the south, created wind chills colder than minus 60 degrees, shut down thousands of flights and entire interstate corridors, cut power to over 1 million Americans, and exposed just how vulnerable we are when nature turns hostile. This storm didn't just pass through. It carved a path of disruption across 30 states and reminded everyone that even in 2026, winter can still bring a nation to its knees. Now the snow has stopped falling. The freezing rain has moved on. The winds have calmed. But what's left behind isn't peace. It's wreckage. Because this winter storm didn't just make headlines, it rewrote winter history across the country. And as the skies begin to clear, we now enter what may be the most dangerous part of all, the aftermath. Across the Northeast, cities are digging out, slowly, painfully. Snowplows work around the clock, but with so much accumulation and so many side streets still buried, progress is excruciatingly slow. In places like Buffalo, Albany, Worcester, and Bangor, driveways are invisible, roofs are buried, and entire neighborhoods are still snowed in. Some towns report snowdrifts taller than cars. Others are cutting through frozen walls just to reach front doors. In rural areas, help is even farther away. Roads haven't been plowed. Power hasn't been restored. And for some, especially the elderly and isolated, that's a potentially deadly delay. Let's talk power for a moment. The grid took a massive hit. From ice-glazed lines in the Carolinas to overburdened transformers in Ohio and Pennsylvania, the outages reached catastrophic scale. As of now, over 1.2 million people remain in the dark. And for many, that means no heat, no light, no communication. Utility crews are working around the clock, but the conditions are brutal. Icy roads, buried substations, trees down by the thousands, and with more Arctic air behind the storm, every hour without power becomes a greater risk. And the damage isn't just to the grid. Thousands of homes and businesses are dealing with burst pipes. When the power goes out and temperatures plummet, plumbing fails, and when things finally thaw, ceilings collapse, basements flood, and water damage explodes. In the South, states like Georgia, Mississippi, and Tennessee, places not built for ice storms, are dealing with a different kind of mess. Slick frozen roads have led to hundreds of accidents. Emergency rooms are flooded with broken bones and carbon monoxide poisonings from improper heat sources. Grocery stores are empty. Gas stations are out of fuel. Schools are closed indefinitely. And some counties are now operating under emergency curfews. This storm didn't care about geography. It didn't care about wealth, politics, or planning. It hit the big cities and the small towns. It hit the North and the South. It hit everyone. And now, as states declare disaster zones and request federal aid, the question becomes, what now? Because recovery isn't going to take days. It's going to take weeks. And for some, months. Infrastructure crews will need to rebuild. Shelters will need support. Families without insurance will need help. And officials across the country will be forced to answer for how and why so many were left so vulnerable. But while cleanup begins, so does the national reflection. How did we get here? Forecasts were accurate, alerts were issued, preparations were made, and still, it wasn't enough. In 2026, with satellites in orbit and Doppler radar on every screen, we were still overwhelmed. Because this wasn't just a weather event, it was a stress test. For the grid, for emergency services, for government response, and for all of us. And as scientists begin reviewing the data, one thing is already clear. This storm was the product of extreme contrasts, extreme cold, extreme moisture, extreme duration, and it may not be the last. Meteorologists are warning that the jet stream, the high-altitude river of air that steers our weather, is becoming increasingly erratic. Sudden dips, sharp turns, unusual patterns. Which means winter storms like this one? They may become more frequent. Already, long-range models show more Arctic outbreaks on the horizon. Already, forecasters are watching new waves of energy gathering over the Pacific. So, as we try to return to normal, we have to ask ourselves, what if this is the new normal? The snow is melting now. Slowly. Quietly. But for millions across America, the storm hasn't ended. Not really. Because while the skies may be blue and the roads are beginning to clear, what remains is something far colder than ice and deeper than any snowbank. It's the realization of just how vulnerable we are. In homes from Arkansas to Maine, families are tallying their losses. A collapsed roof here, a burst pipe there, food spoiled, walls soaked, livelihoods shaken. But beyond the physical damage, this storm left something more lasting. Psychological scars. Children now afraid of the dark, remembering nights huddled in cold bedrooms. Elderly neighbors who still haven't spoken since the power came back on. Communities bound not by celebration but by shared trauma, because the scariest part of this storm wasn't the snow. It was the silence. The hours spent waiting for heat to return, for plows to arrive, for updates that never came. And in that silence, people learned the hardest truth of all. Sometimes, you're on your own. Neighbors became first responders. Local churches became warming shelters. Parents became survivalists overnight, rationing food, burning candles, melting snow to flush toilets. And now, even as the media moves on to the next headline, The memory of this storm stays. It lingers in conversations, in empty store shelves, in backup generators being installed, and emergency kits restocked. Because no one wants to feel that helpless again. And maybe that's the one thing this storm gave us: clarity. It reminded us that weather isn't just something you dress for, it's something that can change your life in a single day. It reminded us that systems fail, that even the most modern society can crack when nature decides to test it. That cold doesn't care about comfort zones, it enters them. And it reminded us, all of us, that preparation matters. Not panic, not fear, but respect. For nature, for warnings, for the quiet signs that something big is coming. Because this storm wasn't just a blizzard, it was a teacher. It showed us where the weaknesses are. In our homes, in our infrastructure, in our assumptions. And in doing so, it gave us the rarest thing of all: a second chance. A chance to plan better, to care deeper, to never underestimate a winter sky again. So, as the snow melts and the headlines fade, don't forget this storm. Don't forget the candles, the cold floors, the frost on the inside of the windows. Don't forget the sound of silence when everything went dark. Let it shape how you prepare for the next one. Because in a world of changing weather and shifting seasons, one thing is certain: it will happen again. And when it does, the question won't be, how much will it snow? The question will be, are you ready?